Hello, BookTube. Well, here we are, that melancholy moment, the last mail haul of the week. It's just a small pile of packages here. Let's see if we have something that even now might make it onto the weekend's reading. Will there be anything in this pile that will be a must-read, the equivalent, my equivalent of an insta-read, where I get it and I can't put it off. Let's see. Usually that won't be an advanced copy. It feels like a lot of these are advanced copies, but usually it will be a finished copy that I haven't got around to or that I haven't reread, and where I don't usually feel that way about something that's way down the road. Okay, this is due in August. Good Lord. It's by Alice Madison, and it's called Conscience. Kind of a funky cover. I don't entirely dislike it. Okay, so what have we got here? Acclaimed author Alice Madison, never heard of her before. Her new novel explores the hard choices a young woman and her friends made decades earlier at the height of the Vietnam War. Decades ago in Brooklyn, 3 girls demonstrated against the Vietnam War. Helen became a violent revolutionary and was killed in a protest in 1970. Val wrote a controversial book that was essentially a novelization of Helen's life, and Olive became an editor and writer, now comfortably settled with her husband, Griff, in New Haven. When Olive is asked to write an essay about Val's book, doing so brings back to the forefront Olive and Griff's tangled histories. Things only become more fraught when Griff borrows Olive's treasured first edition of the novel and loses it. Then Griff's new colleague, Jean, finds the book and begins reading it, setting off a series of events that will introduce new conflicts, tragedies, and friendships into a precarious balance of Olive and Griff's once stable home. This is going to be a lot about the married couple. Conscience, the dazzling new novel from acclaimed author Alice Madison, paints the nuanced relationships between the palpable personalities of Olive, Griff, and Jean with her signature wit and precision. She has a signature wit and precision. And as Madison explores the ways in which women make a difference, for good or ill, in the world, she elegantly weaves together the past and present, and the political and the personal. Okay, and she herself lives in New Haven, Connecticut, and is the author of The Book Borrower. Oh, The Book Borrower. Okay, I read that. Nothing is Quite Forgotten in Brooklyn, and When We All Argued All Night. I don't know those other two, but I did read The Book Borrower, and I kind of liked it. Okay. All right, so she's a practiced hand, so that's good. That's very good. Of course, the first thought that came to mind. Not only because I underestimate literary fiction, I mean, it's no secret on this channel that I'm far more of a fan of 1,000-page histories of Otto von Bismarck than I am of modern novels. Although I read them all. I always hesitate to say that, but I have a handful of friends who have been book critics as long as I have, and they all are perfectly willing to admit that although I throw snark at contemporary fiction, I read more of it than they do, even though it's all they review. It's just, but my first instinct when I read that plot description about the three young women that Helen becomes a revolutionary and is killed in a protest in 1970. Val writes a controversial book, and Olive becomes a writer and is asked to write about the book. My first thought when I read that is that Helen didn't die. And I know that's cheesy. That's such a cheesy, melodramatic reduction of what I'm sure is a more complicated novel. But I will certainly read it, in the summer. I'm not going to read an August book in February. Okay. You may remember 1 second ago I pronounced in my best Harold Bloom way, I'm not going to read an August book in February. and I was wrong. This next book is an August release. It's by Bennett Brandreth, and it's called The Spy of Venice, a William Shakespeare mystery. The very next book I open is one that I'm going to read tomorrow. Of course, without reading a single word of the plot synopsis, I am of course going to read The Spy of Venice, a William Shakespeare mystery. And I don't care if it comes out in August, I'm going to read it right away. I'm still infallible. Okay? Eyes on the prize. What are the odds? Alright, so what have we got here? August 1585. England needs its greatest hero to step forward. When he is caught by his wife in one ill-advised seduction too many, young William Shakespeare flees Stratford to seek his fortune. Cast adrift in London, Will falls in with a band of players, but greater men have their eyes on this talented young wordsmith. England's very survival hangs in the balance, and Will finds himself dispatched to Venice on a crucial assignment. Dazzled by the city's masts and beauties, he little realizes the peril in which he finds himself. Catholic assassins would stop at nothing to end his mission with the point of their sharpened knives. And lurking in the shadows is a killer as clever as he is cruel. Suspenseful, seductive, and sharp as an assassin's blade, The Spy of Venice introduces a major new literary talent to the genre. Thrilling if you've never read a word of Shakespeare, and sublime if you have. The author is Bennett Brandreth, who has come up with so this is the beginning of a career. This is his debut, I'm sure. Yeah, it is. This is his debut novel, and it's the beginning of a series of murder mysteries starring William Shakespeare. Okay. About whom virtually nothing is known, so the slate is wide open to do this. Bennett Brandreth is an expert on Shakespeare's language and times, the rhetoric coach to the Royal Shakespeare Company, and a writer and performer whose last one-man show was a 5-star reviewed sellout at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival and in London. And The Spy of Venice is his debut novel. Okay. All right. A murder mystery series starring William Shakespeare. So let's see what the next one is here. This one comes out in May. Oh, fantastic. Great. This is The Council of 12. A Hangman's Daughter murder mystery. Another historical murder mystery, only this is a part of an established series that's tremendously good. Just tremendously good. It's by Oliver O'Farrell. And he is... oh my. Okay, he's aging. When he wrote his first one, The Hangman's Daughter, he was, I believe the German term is cutie patootie. Now he's becoming a distinguished author. And he was, for years, a radio personality for Bavarian radio and a screenwriter for Bavarian public television. He is the descendant of the Kuisels, the well-known line of Bavarian executioners who inspired his novels. And in addition to his Hangman Daughter series, he's also the author of contemporary thriller The Ludwig Conspiracy and the historical epic The Castle of Kings, and he lives in Munich. And I read The Castle of Kings, and I'm familiar with this sort of thing. I absolutely love reading them when the author of a successful series of murder mysteries wants to write something else, when they want to write a big historical epic. I consume them. The Roman historical murder mystery writer Lindsay Davis did a huge one on the English Civil War. Stephen Saylor has done a few. One that was called just Roma, and that was a gigantic historical novel spanning the history of ancient Rome, and that wasn't part of his series of ongoing murder mysteries. People do it. Such authors do it all the time. I don't know why. Maybe they want to break out of the formulaic nature of their murder mysteries or whatever. But I was sorry that The Castle of Kings was really good, and I was sorry that it didn't get any kind of critical notice. I always think how disappointing that must be for an author. Wait a minute, was that the doorbell? No, can't have been. Anyway, this is a series that takes place in the 1700s and in the 17th century and is wonderful. This is the 7th Hangman's Daughter mystery. A serial killer stalks the streets of 1600s Munich with a hangman, Jakob Kuisel, and his family, the only hope to end the killings. The year is 1672. Hangman Jakob Kuisel and his family moved to Munich, the cosmopolitan heart of Bavaria, for a meeting of the prestigious and dishonorable hangmen, at least, Council of 12, the leaders of the empire's Hangman's Guild. But something dark is happening behind the scenes. In the past weeks, young women have begun turning up dead. At first, the authorities assume there are a rash of suicides, but when our hero notices that each woman possesses a matching amulet, suspicions arise that someone is murdering these women. And this is an author who likes to sometimes begin his murder mystery with the crime, leaving out key details so that we know the horror of the moment, but we don't know anything about. We know a few things about who might end up being the killer, and sometimes I don't like it when an author does that. Sometimes it seems like, you're freighting the drama. A dead body should be dramatic enough, but he does it so well. I don't know if this book starts off that way, but this is late May, so this is another summer release. So that's 2 big murder mysteries, big historical murder mysteries. What have we got here? Okay, didn't request this. This is due in July, late July. It looks like a romance. This is Colleen Hoover, All Your Perfects. 5 years ago, Colleen Hoover fulfilled a long-held dream and self-published her first novel, Slammed. Atria Books acquired the rights, and a remarkable career was launched. Oh, wow. Self-published author makes good. How wonderful. And more than 2 million copies of her novels have been sold since then. That's incredible. Okay, so what is... It's a heartbreaking page-turner about a damaged couple whose potential future hinges on promises made in the past. Can a love story with a perfect beginning survive a lifetime between 2 imperfect people? Huh. Okay, so this is Atria Books. This comes out... Looks like this will be a paperback when it comes out in July? I don't know. Okay, murder mystery. I've got it on the brain. But no, it's just a romance novel. So what is this? What is this next one here? Okay, this is the finished copy of Alice Feeney's Sometimes I Lie. I think we saw this on this channel before. This comes out in mid-March, and it's a thriller, I believe. Imagine waking in a hospital after an accident that you cannot remember. You can't move or speak, can't interact with people coming in and out of your room. You can't even open your eyes. Welcome to the world of Amber Reynolds in Alice Feeney's remarkable debut. Oh, this is a debut novel. No, I don't think we saw this already. Amber can hear everyone around her. She can hear her husband and her sister having tense conversations about her. She can hear her husband attempting to console her from the other side of the hospital bed. But something isn't right. Amber has a suspicion her husband has something to do with why she's in the hospital in the first place. But the memories of that night are just out of reach. Alternating between her paralyzed present, the week before her accident, and a series of childhood diaries from 20 years ago, Feeney's Sometimes I Lie, hence the play on words in lie, leaves readers guessing until the very last page and asks the question, is something really a lie if you believe it's the truth? Okay, so she lives in the Surrey countryside with her husband and her dog, and this is her debut novel. And it's the organizing gimmick. I was just talking just a few minutes ago with a mystery author about organizing gimmicks to novels like this, and the organizing gimmick here is that the protagonist not only doesn't remember the crime, but can't do anything at all except think about what they don't remember. Can't move, can't speak, can't investigate, can't even question people. Okay, all right, so that comes out in mid-March. Fascinating. Okay, and then this last one, which is fairly heavy, so it might be a finished copy. Something. It is... Oh. Okay. This comes out in May, but I'm going to read it right away. So this little 5-book haul has 2 books I'm going to read right away. This is Alison Weir. This is Jane Seymour, The Haunted Queen, the latest in her Tudor Queens series. She's doing a huge historical novel about each of Henry's wives. So the 6 Tudor Queens is a restrictive series title because, of course, there were many Tudor queens. What she means is 6 Tudor wives of one man. And so she's done Catherine of Aragon and she's done Anne Boleyn. And the Catherine of Aragon book I kind of liked and the Anne Boleyn book I kind of didn't. And now we've got Jane Seymour, the mother of Henry's only legitimate male heir. Wow. Okay. So let's see here. Yeah, the most cherished bride and mother of his only legitimate male heir. Jane has longed for a cloistered life as a nun, but her large noble family has other plans, and as an adult, Jane is invited to the king's court to serve as lady-in-waiting to Queen Catherine of Aragon. The devout Catherine shows kindness to all her ladies, almost like a second mother, which makes rumors of Henry's lustful pursuit of Anne Boleyn, also a lady-in-waiting to the queen, all the more shocking. For Jane, the betrayal triggers memories of a haunting incident that shaped her beliefs about marriage. But once Henry disavows Catherine and secures Anne as his new queen, forever altering the religious landscape of England, he turns his eye to another, Jane herself. Urged to return the king's affection and earn favor for his family, Jane is drawn into a dangerous political game that pits her conscience against her desires. Can Jane be the one to give the king his long-sought-after son, or will she be cast aside like the women who came before her? Okay, well, you know, this comes out, what did I say, mid-May, and like all of these things, I mentioned it in the Catherine of Aragon book, I mentioned it in the Anne Boleyn book, this is the most well-trod historical fiction ground imaginable. There have been 80 million novels about Jane Seymour, and some of them have been quite good, and of course she's all over Hilary Mantel's two Thomas Cromwell books, Wolf Hall and Bring Up the Bodies, and not favorably either. Hilary Mantel's characterization of her as this wan, pale, inhuman in a negative way kind of vampire creature is sublime, just sublime. And you don't know, because the books are told to you by Thomas Cromwell, you don't know if maybe that's partially him. I mean, his dislike for Anne Boleyn is palpable throughout the two books, and the reason why could be that she was dislikable, or it could be that she's a fellow schemer and trimmer, and that's why he doesn't like her. The most vicious characterization in Wolf Hall, of course, is Thomas More, who's not a saint by any means. He's not a man for all seasons. He's a horrible hypocrite in Wolf Hall. And you wonder, I mean, it's a wonderful portrait, but you wonder the whole time, is this being colored by the fact that Cromwell can't stand sanctimony? And by the same token, you wonder the same thing about Jane Seymour throughout that book. She's being portrayed as this character who pretends to be horrified by men just in general. And you wonder, it's a totally convincing portrait on its own, but you wonder, is it just that Cromwell has no use for women like that he likes women who are more forthright? That sort of thing. That's utterly fascinating. I don't imagine that there will be that kind of psychological depth in this book, although you never know. It's a huge book to be about Jane Seymour. This could very well be the longest Jane Seymour novel that's ever been written. And there isn't that much to Jane Seymour, so that will require a lot of work. There's that much and more to the Seymours as a family, but not to her. So I don't know. Wow. Okay. And there's another Jane Seymour. Now I'll put all the links down below. I've written about all of these things. But there's an author that I particularly like writing Tudor historical fiction, and she's not known. She doesn't get anything like the credit. Suzannah Dunn is her name. She doesn't get anything like the credit that she deserves. Far and away the best, and yet nobody knows her name in the sense of Alison Weir, who is also a popular selling historian, or Hilary Mantel now, or Philippa Gregory. Her book on Jane Seymour is terrific. Oh, terrific. Although for my money, I mean, she's written a lot of Tudor books, but for my money, the best book she's ever done is about Henry's final wife, Catherine Parr. Not anything like the real Catherine Parr, but the portrait of the woman in that book, even if it takes huge liberties with the actual historical Catherine Parr, it doesn't matter. The character of the woman at the center of that book is just amazing. Anyway, I'm interested in reading this. Anyway, this comes out in May, and I will certainly review it. I certainly will. Because there's a lot to the Jane Seymour story, and a lot of it escapes Jane Seymour's biographers. Almost always it escapes Henry biographers. And it usually, sad to say, escapes Jane Seymour novelists as well. who don't connect the dots. They see the end result, but they refuse to extrapolate backwards and say, well, if that's the end result, then this person had to be X, Y, and Z, or it wouldn't have happened. Henry wouldn't have pursued things. And yet they refuse to do it. It's like his characterization of Jane as pure and sort of Madonna figure has ruled the historical characterizations ever since. That's what made Wolf Hall so refreshing. Anyway, all right, so it's certainly going to be a lovely thing. I remember that about the Anne Boleyn and the Catherine of Aragon. They ended up being lovely books. And I think, Alison Weir knows all the stuff that I'm saying. She knows the period as well as I do. So I think she's making a conscious choice to write a big, accessible, florid, historical romance. Perfectly okay, provided it's well done. We'll see. So we've got Jane Seymour. We've got Lie to Me, in which a woman can't remember why she's in the hospital and can't do anything about it because she can't even open her eyes, much less talk or move. Then All Your Perfects, about imperfect love, two very imperfect people. Then historical murder mystery, The Council of 12. The Council of 12 being the ruling council of the Hangman's Guild. Then The Spy of Venice. You might as well all just concede and pre-order your copy now. This is a debut novel starring the sleuth William Shakespeare. The Spy of Venice. And Conscience by Alice Madison. A novel that about the long-term fallout of the Vietnam War and what it does to the lives of three women. What a fascinating haul. I'm very pleased. I don't know if that was the doorbell. If it was probably a Jehovah's Witness or something. Don't get me wrong, I'm sorry to miss them, but I don't think it was books. I'm pretty sure this is the final mail haul of the week. And if it's not, if that was a shipment of books, I'm going to go out there with the dog right now and find out. You're never going to believe me. It'll be like 3 weeks in a row that I've said this is the final mail haul of the week and been wrong. So I'm kind of in a perverse way hoping it's not. But we'll see. One way or another, I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.